All right. Hey everyone, it's Alyssa and Nicole here with Blonde's Breakdown Real Estate. And today we're super excited. We have Brad Yozik with Terra Nova Appraisals, and we're going to go over the appraisal process and the appraisal contingency. So welcome, Brad. We're super excited to have you.
Oh, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Awesome, Brad. So if you wouldn't mind, please give us a little intro on you and your background in real estate as an appraiser.
Oh, okay, sure. Let's see. Well, back in 2004, I was a process engineer for a capital management firm in downtown San Diego, and I got laid off. And I was tired of making other people money, so I was trying to think of something that I could do on my own that would I could have my own business. And my brother-in-law had his appraisal company out in Arizona. And so I gave him a call and said, hey, I'm very interested in seeing what this appraising thing is all about. And so I went out there. I trained for 2 years. I worked under him for 2 years, got licensed and certified in the state of Arizona. And they have reciprocity between California and Arizona. So I transferred back out here and started up my own business in 2007.
Awesome.
And have been doing it since. And it was probably the absolute worst time to start appraising with the housing market crash. So
awesome. Well,
but I survived.
A definition of what an appraisal is?
What is an appraisal? Okay, so what if I were to ask one of you, what do you guys think an appraisal is?
I would probably say an appraisal is, a general valuation of a property, or
I'd say a neutral opinion on the value of the property.
Okay, very good. So it's one person's opinion of value at a given point in time based on their analysis of the market data. So, but that person must be trained, licensed, and a professional appraiser in order for any lending institute to accept it as an opinion of value. So, you guys were close.
I hope so.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So just kind of some general other questions. So who typically orders the appraisal from you?
So the lender will. The lender or the bank that the buyer is borrowing the money from, they typically require the appraisal just to protect their investment.
Okay. Do you ever have sellers requesting appraisals from you?
I do. Yeah, I will. It's very rare that happens. But if a seller does that, then they're typically asking for help on what they want to list their home at.
Gotcha.
But
do you ever think that's a benefit? Because I always tell sellers don't get an appraisal, but they ask me all the time, should I?
Well, I think that they should trust their real estate agents, right? you guys do the research as much as I do, and you guys will comp it out and try to figure out what a good list price would be. But if they do, I mean, I have no problem on doing that. It's just that do they want to spend that money for an appraisal? But I think they should trust you guys to come up with whatever. So I've also had agents give me a call and say, hey, I'm really struggling with where I should set this at. Could you come out and do an appraisal for me? And I will do that, yes.
And how much do appraisals typically cost?
So they can typically range from anywhere from $375 up to about $550.
Okay. And who pays for those?
Okay, so the buyer typically pays when there's a sale. So the buyer typically pays for the appraisal, but they don't pay me directly. That usually is captured in the closing costs of the loan.
Gotcha.
So they don't. It's not like if an appraisal is ordered, they have to meet me at the house to pay me to do the appraisal.
Perfect. And about how long does it take? So once you get the order in your system, how long does it take you to get the appraisal back to the lender?
Yeah. So after I've been in the property, it typically takes me 1 to 2 days because the details of that property are fresh in my mind. So I want to get it out the door. So typically after I've been in the house, 1 to 2 days, it'll be sent out to the either AMC or the lender. The AMC is an appraisal management company. They're the middle person, group that's, because we're not supposed to communicate with the lender anymore.
Right. And why is that? Do you want to explain to people why you're not allowed to communicate with the lender?
2008. Where, there were some instances where the lenders and an appraiser were working together to do appraisal.
Get a value up.
And to get the values up. And, it was only 5% of the appraisals that were doing this. And so that 5% ruined it for the rest of us, 95% who are doing honest appraisals. So that was with the housing crash. The government stepped in and said, okay, now we need to have these, what they call AMC, appraisal management companies, communicate to the appraisers that they'll order the appraisers to us, but the lenders are the ones that are working with the AMCs, and we don't get to talk to them anymore.
So is there typically anybody else besides you that's present during an appraisal?
For a sale?
Mm-hmm. If a buyer is in escrow and we have to get an appraisal for the loan, does the listing agent usually show up? Does the buyer's agent, is the buyer able to be there?
Typically the listing agents will meet me there at the property. The sellers may also be there. The buyer does not have to be there. But sometimes if it's a lockbox vacant, I let the listing agents know that I have a Centra card and I'm able to go there. And if they still want to meet me there, they will. I have no problem with that. But I'm able to go on my own as well, if necessary.
Okay. If you could explain to us kind of how you evaluate a property.
That's what I was going to ask.
So you're asking how I determine the value of a property?
Exactly.
Okay. So for a sale, most of the time I really don't determine the value. What I try to do is I try to confirm the value that the buyer and the seller had negotiated, which is the contract price, right? Now, if it's for like a refinance or for a date of death appraisal, then there really is no targeted number for me to go by. I get a copy of the contract, so I know what the contract price is. I know what concessions are. I know everything about what's going on with the property and what these two individuals had negotiated. Okay. So for a refinance, though, I do need to determine the value. Okay. But in all instances, the most common approach that appraisers use is what we call the sales comparison approach. And that's where appraisers select some recent comparable sales within the subject's neighborhood, hopefully, right, that are most similar to the subject property. And we make the appropriate adjustments to those comps that we use. And we come up with an adjusted sales price for each one of them. So let me give you a very simple example. So we have a subject property that the sales price is $500,000. And we have a model match that's down the street that sold for $500,000 last week. So it's on the same lot size. It's a model match. So it's the same livable area, same bedroom count, same bathroom count. It's in similar condition. Let's say that it has similar upgrades as the subject property. So this is my comp number one, right? It's sold for $500,000. I've got a contract price at $500,000. I didn't have to make any adjustments to this particular comp. So 500,000 minus 0 adjustments, I've got an adjusted sales price of $500,000. There's another comp that sold 3 weeks ago. It's also a model match, okay? It sold for $515,000. It's on the same lot size. It's the same livable area, same bathroom count, bedroom count, everything's the same. But this one has a pool and a spa in the back. Okay, so the market value of having a pool and spa appears to be about $15,000. So I make it a negative adjustment for that home having a pool and a spa and the subject property not having a pool and spa. So that 515 minus 15,000, the adjusted sales price 500,000. And then I'll go on to comp 3, comp 4, comp 5. But so now I've supported the contract price of 500,000 with two great comps, two model matches, and their adjusted sales price came in at 500,000. So I'm going to come in at 500,000 and say, yeah, the buyer and seller negotiated a very good deal here.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I think my question is, and I have these questions frequently from buyers, are those adjustments set? Like, is there a set adjustment for the value of a pool or a busy street, or are those just subject to the area and what other comps are going for comparatively?
Yeah, so it really is subject to the area, the value of the home. So, I mean, if we're talking a $3 million home and they've got a custom pool and a custom spa,
Right.
Pebble Tech, then there's more values for those pools. But it really is based on like paired sales analysis, where you've got, like the example I told you, you've got a sale of a home for 515,000, and it's the exact same as your home, but it has a pool and a spa. So market-wise, people are willing to pay about $15,000 for a pool and a spa in that market at that time.
Cool.
So
Okay.
I'm going to kind of dive into a little bit of COVID, just because it's very relevant right now. Has coronavirus affected the way you determine value on certain properties right now, just market conditions?
It has not. So we really haven't seen a impact on market value on homes by COVID yet.
Okay.
I expect that to happen.
Okay.
I just don't know how much of an impact it's going to have. But I am still busy enough with sales and refis that I just haven't seen any decline or increase in market values at all so far.
Okay.
But it's very early, and it usually does take a little bit of time.
Okay.
I think we're seeing the same thing, and most of our people we've talked to, everybody's kind of seeing the same thing. The housing market has just stayed steady.
Yeah. Which it's kind of surprising, but it is early still. So in these types of things, it may take a little bit of time. So maybe in a couple of months we'll start, because there may be a slight decrease in people wanting to buy homes at this time right now, and that's the case. So we may see some changes here.
Okay. What about repairs? Sometimes we, both Alyssa and I, have received appraisals back that say, this appraisal has come back at value subject to this repair or that repair. Can you touch on that a little bit, what those repairs may look like?
Yeah, you don't really typically run into a lot of that with sales, because they'll get the home ready. They also have a home inspector, which we are not home inspectors. But there are instances where we have to look at the soundness of the structure, the security of the home, the property, and how it impacts the health and safety of the occupants. And if any of those are impacted, then we have to call it out in the appraisal report. And really, it's just by us observing. We're not going into the walls and looking at things like that. We're just going around looking, and it's got to be pretty obvious. For example, I had one where it was a sale, and I got to the property. It was a condominium. I got to the property, and the front window right next to the door had a basketball-sized hole in it, and there's shards of glass and stuff. And it's like, gosh, I mean, I could just reach in and grab the curtains if I wanted to. So, I have to call that out. It's not only is it a safety hazard, because people can get cut by the glass, but it's also a security hazard. People can reach in, unlock the front door, and you're in the house. So yeah, I had called that out in the appraisal, said that it's subject to repair of that window. So then about a week later, I got a request to go out and do the final inspection on that property. I went out there, and the window was covered with cardboard. So it wasn't acceptable. I mean, I don't know what's behind the cardboard. I didn't know if the glass was still there but it's cardboard. And so people can push the cardboard in, unlock the door. Now it's still an unsecure place. So I just put it subject to replacement of the window again. So then a week later I had to go back out. They replaced the window and it was good.
Gotcha.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of appraisals, because we get VA, FHA. From your standpoint, do you have any different like requirements? Are you stricter on one appraisal versus another?
Well, I don't know about being stricter, but there are, like a VA and FHA, they have some additional requirements that appraisers must address in their reports. For example, like FHA, they require, like if a house has a crawl space, they require a photo of a crawl space under a home. And then we pretty much need to make a statement in there that there's no evidence of pooling water, that there is, the support beams are intact, there's adequate access, there's enough room to make repairs under there if needed. So things like that. But for all types of loans, we really kind of focus in on, is it structurally sound? Is the property secure? And is the occupant's health and safety potentially jeopardized in any way? So,
okay.
But
so you're not being, because people always shy away from going with VA loans because they think the appraisals are harder because there's not as much down payment or things like that. Can we debunk that a little?
I would say yes, because, you know, there really aren't, FHA is a lot more stricter than VA. And there's a lot more things that we're looking for in FHA that we have to call out if it's not met. But for VA is very, to me, it's very similar to a conventional.
We hope every agent watching this now understands that the VA loan is still a very competitive offer. Thank you.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happens if the appraisal comes in below value.
Below value, we have we have very, very unhappy real estate agents.
What?
So, you know, I do my best that for this to never happen. But like if I notice that a contract price seems to be a bit high for my research of the recent comps in the area and stuff, then I will I'll reach out to the listing agent and you know, I let them know, hey, I'll be more than willing to take a look at any comps you want me to take a look at. Mm-hmm. And then I also will ask them, you know, what comps were used to set the value of the home, right? And a lot of times the agent will come back to me and say, you know, we had multiple offers and we took the highest offer. And, you know, they know, I mean, when I see a home that's listed at $500,000 and, excuse me, and the sales price is $555,000, right? So, you know, they know that it's above what they even thought the home was going to go for, and that it's going to be really tough, next to impossible, for an appraisal to come in at value. So there's an avenue that lenders have that they can take, that they'll send an appraiser a reconsideration of value. And typically within that reconsideration of value, they'll have 3 to 5 comps that you know, the listing agent has given them or the buyer's agent has given them that they want us to consider and either say, you know, why wasn't it used in the original report, or to go ahead and include it in the updated report and then see if that adjusts our opinion of value at all.
Gotcha.
So I guess that takes us to our, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, do you think it's even, is it worth it for a listing agent or a buyer's agent to try and fight you on something?
So I don't know, what would they be fighting over?
Trying to get the value up, I would say.
Okay, so again, like I said, I have absolutely no problem on taking a look at whatever comps that a listing agent wants to use. Mm-hmm. So let's say that we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home. And the listing agent says, well, I want you to use these comps. And they hand me a comp that is a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom, 2,000 square foot home that, you know, I've got to make these square footage adjustments, bedroom adjustments, bathroom count, pool adjustments. It's been renovated throughout. Ours has not. See, so there's a lot of things that, okay, I'll look at it, but this is the reasoning why I can't use it. Or if I do use it, I'm going to have 30% adjustments. So I start out with this, you know, it's
great number, yeah.
$555,000 sale price, but to get to your home, it comes down to $500,000. So, but again, I don't want to fight.
Yeah. Unless there's like something materially incorrect, then probably not.
Correct. Yes. And I have seen, I've seen appraisals where there's a lot of issues, based on what I would do, they've done it differently. And, you know, it's like, well, so I would go ahead, you know, I work with listing agents, and they'll say, hey, take a look at this appraisal. I mean, what's, you know, I didn't think we'd have any problem with value. And so I'll take a look at it, and I'll point out a few things that, yeah, you know, I don't know, they didn't bracket the square footage, or, you know, there's something in there that I'll let them know that, hey, you know, this is an issue. And here's a comp that, you know, you've asked them, why didn't they use this comp? It's a perfect comp. So
what about unpermitted additions? When someone turns or, you know, extends the garage into an extra living space, or puts a sunroom and turns that into, you know, an extra living space, or has an ADU in the backyard that they haven't gotten permitted. How do you go about, you know, determining value with something that's unpermitted?
So we need to report what we see at the time that we're there, right? So if someone has a garage that they've converted into livable space and it's not permitted, then what I typically do is I take a picture of the interior of the garage, but I cannot give them credit for livable area of that garage. So then there's a cost to cure to change the livable area back to a garage. It typically isn't that much, especially if the garage door is still there. That's very helpful. But I can really only value that as a garage. So I can't really give it livable area. Now, there is, like, if someone has an extension of an enclosed patio, and they've kind of included it in their livable area, and it's done professionally, and it's done in a workmanlike manner and stuff, and it looks great, and it flows with the rest of the home, what I'll do is I'll indicate that it may be unpermitted, but it's done in a workmanlike manner, and then I'll give it more value. I won't give it as much value as the price per square foot of the home, but I will give it value.
Okay.
Because it's done nice and it looks great and it flows with the home.
Okay. And what about the ADU?
So at ADU, if it's not permitted, then we need to find out if that's legal within the city, whatever city, wherever the.
I ask this because I've had buyers that have, you know, wanted to purchase a home, and they come in at, you know, a competitive offer price, but we know that the ADU in the backyard that's, you know, going to be potential rental income for this buyer is not permitted, and they're worried about running into an issue with an appraisal and having to potentially, they always ask, you know, am I going to be responsible for having to go to the city and get the permits? What?
Yeah, if they want the full value of an ADU, then yes, they do. I would go down to the city and get it permitted.
Okay.
Right.
But you're not going to be you're not making anybody tear anything down.
No, not at all. As I said, so I have to do as is. So if there is an ADU unit that is out back, and it's got, you know, a kitchenette and a bathroom and a bedroom, I can't really, there's value there, but I can't give it as much value as I would the main home.
Okay. So if call the city and say, hey, these guys have got an unpermitted ADU in the back.
Say that again.
You're not going to be, the one calling the city.
Oh, no.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that because
I'm not.
Good to know. Yeah.
I don't know
People
of any
do get
appraiser that
nervous
would do
over
that, but no. So what I'll do is I'll just indicate in the report that there's an unpermitted ADU, and I can only give it, $20 per square foot value.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's kind of
on
like
a side note,
like storage.
Yeah.
So along those same lines with the ADU, because ADU is going to be a huge, I think, boom in the future. How are you guys coming to values on those for properties that don't have any comparable things around them? And they are permitted. So
yeah. Well, so I try very hard to find something else that has, an ADU or a guest house or whatever. I do my best to find something. If I have to go back 3 years, I will go back 3 years. Then what I have to do is find out, well, what was the price difference between that home that has an ADU and a similar sized home that recently sold around the same time that one did that does not have it. And then I figure out it's called a paired sales analysis. And if that one with the ADU sold for $50,000 more than the other ones that are similar and all that, then that ADU is worth $50,000.
value.
Gotcha.
Okay. Interesting. Do you guys ever use just total home square footage? So if somebody has a 1,500 square foot home and then a 500 square foot ADU, can you just comp it as 2,000 square foot or no?
Yeah, I have done that, especially if it's attached. I have done that because in county records, it's combined. And it's a 2,000, it's a 1,500 square foot home and a 500 square foot ADU, but in tax records, it says it's a single family home, 2,000 square feet.
Gotcha.
So it's permitted, it's there. So yeah, I will include it as all.
Cool.
Awesome. Any other questions, Alyssa?
Yeah. What would be so we work with a lot of buyers who, have this appraisal contingency. And unfortunately we do have times when the appraisals come in low or below value. If this was your friend that you're talking to and they got a low appraisal, would you ever advise anybody to come out of pocket to make up that difference?
It's really up to the buyer themselves. I mean, I've had instances where the buyer falls in love with a home and they are willing to pay an extra $50,000 more than what any other offer is out there. And so they have to make it noted that they will pay the difference between what it appraised for and what they purchased it at. But it's really up to the buyer. I mean, so, how it is. Some people just fall in love with something and they want it and they'll pay anything to get it. But, do I recommend that they pay over what the value is? I would never do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I think my question is if it's your daughter or somebody who, doesn't have $50,000 to make up the difference.
I would not recommend to pay over. Now, again, I am not the end all. I don't know everything. Okay. I mean, this is just my opinion of the value of a home. And I would be I'm more than happy to take a look at any type of reconsideration of value, any type of comps that anybody wants to give me to say, hey, I think you're wrong on this. And if I am, then I will adjust it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I just don't recommend that people really pay over what it appraised at, because appraisers were trained, we're licensed, we should know what we're doing. So.
And if you're working with a good real estate professional, then the buyer should have an idea that, hey, you're probably paying a little high right now. So hopefully.
Yeah.
So just to kind of put it on the flip side of things, when an appraisal comes in above value, that's great. That's the ideal situation for a buyer. The appraisal comes in above value. The listing agent does not need to be made aware of this fact, nor do the sellers. And at that point, as a buyer, you're walking into your new home with equity in your pocket. So there's.
Yeah, you know, as an appraiser, I really won't, I'm not that good to say that if a buyer and a seller agree to a $500,000 purchase price, I'm not good enough to say, no, it's not 500,000, it's 502. So as long as I have supported that value, $500,000, then I'm going to come in at the contract price.
Gotcha.
So with that being said, I mean, I think it is pretty rare for appraisers to appraise homes higher, but I've had quite a few where I get a buyer in contract and the appraisal comes in over. So you'd say that's a total win for a buyer.
Of course. Yeah, it is. It does happen. It does happen. And I mean, I've had one to where the sales, I was looking at the contract, and all of my comps were about $50,000 above it. And it's like,
yeah, you can't ignore
so
it.
I called the agent, and she just told me, yeah, the buyer just said, I need to sell this. I got to unload it. I got to go. And she took the very first offer that was there, and it's like, okay.
Score.
Yeah, no kidding.
Cool.
Awesome. Well,
and I think that Brad touched on it before. We don't have a choice in which appraiser comes out for a buyer or for a seller. I shouldn't say I wish we did, but it is a neutral party. It goes to a management company, and then it goes to you to keep it at arm's length. So just so that everybody knows, in terms of your appraisal contingency, nobody's muddying the waters. So it is best for everybody, and a neutral third party does get selected. So can you kind of tell us, Brad, how does that process work? Does it just pop into your inbox and you go out, or?
Yeah, so what we do is we get on these lists, appraisal panel lists for appraisal management companies. And what they do is they will send it out to, 5 of us, so a possible appraisal. And, we'll do a little bit of preliminary research on it. And if we want to accept it, we'll accept it. So if I try to accept it and someone else has already accepted it before me, then it's done. It's gone. I can't get it. But yeah, and it's completely, it's random. They don't get to select their appraisers either. They have a panel that they have to send it out to.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I don't know, I typically don't know the lender. I know who the lender is, but I don't work with them. I don't talk to them. So yeah, and I'm completely independent. I have my own business.
Awesome.
Perfect. So if anybody does need to get a hold of you, if they want an appraisal or anything like that, we will definitely put your information at the bottom, because I know that sometimes people do need appraisals for tax purposes and things like that.
Right.
They can reach out to you
no
directly.
problem at all. No problem at all. And then if you guys need any help at all with any of your listings or whatever, or just preliminaries and stuff, I'd be more than happy to take a look for you. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brad. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us all this education, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon for another video.
Okay, great, ladies.
Thank you so much, Brad.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
All right, talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye.